So, good evening, everybody from Startup Nation Central, and welcome back to ISEL Summit 2020. This is a great time for you to take a very interesting break. We all know how community managers have a great challenge on a daily basis. They're juggling 2 jobs, sometimes even more than that. They have the stresses of everyday life, of dealing with various community members that need their support. So it's just go, go, go. And what we've created for you today is a special session with Smadar Gazit Yehuda, who is a clinical psychologist and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy practitioner. She's from the Mindfulness Center here in Israel. And for those of you who have never heard about mindfulness, it's very, very interesting. It's actually a research-based method. And mindfulness is used today by Microsoft, Google, Facebook, all the big giants as part of their HR services that they provide their employees. So, and some of them have actually established a role which is called CMOs, Chief Mindfulness Officers. Isn't that amazing? So really looking after their staff. It's also used by Olympic athletes, the World Bank, and so many other organizations that understand that mindfulness, that having your team really engaged and present in the moment is as so important for them. So Smadar, thank you for joining us today. We're really excited to have you here. And I'll let you take it from here. If you need me, I am backstage and doing my mindfulness session away from the eye of the crowd. So thanks for that.
Actually, right now I'm experiencing something that probably most of you experience on a daily basis, and that's something has gone wrong. I've just had to shift from one computer to the other, and at this point I can't find the presentation which I prepared. And so this is a great moment for me to practice mindfulness. And although I would really like to run along with my doing mind and my fixing mind, I would like to take a moment and bring myself back to what I'm doing now and to you, and to try and settle back before I either let it go or find a solution. So we're going to start our session with just a very, very short experiential getting to know mindfulness. And then we'll turn to a bit of theory, of concepts that I would like to get you acquainted with. But for these first 2-3 minutes, what I really would like to ask you to do is get yourself settled down in a chair or a couch, wherever you're sitting, allowing your back to be supported, and just feel that support and the way it can allow you to really let go. Even if it's just 2 or 3%, just letting yourself feel that ability to lessen the effort that you put into keeping your body upright, awake. And now let's take a few deep breaths. If you feel comfortable, you can let your eyes close. And just becoming aware of what's going on right now. Perhaps we can begin with sounds. allowing ourselves to let go of anything we may attempt to fix or plan. Just for the next several minutes, are we able to let it go? And coming back to the breath and opening our eyes. Can you sense any difference in how you feel right now? Have these few moments of relating differently, have they brought any specific change that you can point to? So that's a question we'll invite ourselves to ask when we're practicing mindfulness. But before I talk about how we practice mindfulness, I want to try and introduce the subject to you, not from a saleswoman's point of view. I don't want to sell anything. I don't want to preach about practicing mindfulness. I want to share with you my very personal encounter with mindfulness and the changes it has brought to my life, just to give you a very honest and humble taste of what mindfulness is really about. So when I just finished my my residency in a clinical psychologist, I can tell you that I was mostly stressed about doing my work. I was sure I wasn't good enough. Many times I felt that I'm not getting it. There are people who understand much more, people who really do their job well as opposed to me. I would find myself ruminating a lot about people that I met in my clinic, concepts that I thought I had to understand, but I didn't. And one of the things that got to me the most was meeting people, especially while I was working at the mental health hospital, meeting people who suffered so much that I felt completely useless in the tools I could bring to our sessions. And what happened back then is that I gave birth to my second daughter, and I felt something was wrong. It took a couple more years until she was diagnosed with some rare genetic syndrome. But that was kind of a break in the reality I was used to. And that was what brought me to mindfulness for the first time. And the ability to start looking at myself differently. In that sense, I was encouraged to watch how my mind was working and then become aware of how much judgment was going on, how much I demanded of myself, how little tolerance I had, so little tolerance that I had for situations that were uncomfortable, that things didn't work out as good as I thought they would. And that had a lot to do with both with my personal life, but also with my professional life. And slowly, when I began to study mindfulness and practice meditation, that really opened the door. First of all, to the understanding that we cannot escape stress. We cannot escape suffering. We cannot escape things going wrong. And the question, the real question is, how well can we deal with that? How much acceptance can we find in our minds and in our hearts for anything from a very little misfortune to much larger scale misfortunes? And interestingly enough, mindfulness tells us that the basic tool to better our mental position and our emotional position towards all these misfortunes is to start using a very basic tool that we all have, which is awareness. Just beginning to become more and more aware of the fact that thoughts happen, emotions occur, come up, stir us up, a lot of bodily sensations get us going. But there is a possibility of not getting hooked, if you like, of not getting caught in that web. And that possibility is best encouraged by building larger, deeper awareness of our own minds. In other words, getting more intimate with our minds. Let's try and do that right now, because it might sound so high level cognitive doings, but it's not. Let's peek in and see, where are your thoughts going right now? Can you catch the emotional tone of what's going on right now? Are you happy? Are you disturbed? Are you tired? And if you were able to catch that, the next question is, how do you react to that? In what way do you see it? Let's say you're tired right now. Do you find yourself saying, "Oh, I wish I didn't get tired so easily"? Or if you feel disturbed, do you add onto that something like, "Oh, I wish this would go away. I can't stand this feeling"? So when we're talking about practicing mindfulness and becoming aware, what we really want to do is learn how to differentiate between our thoughts as they are. And I don't know, maybe this will be great news for some of you, but we have no control over our thoughts. That's one of the first things that you understand when you start to practice mindfulness. We cannot control our thoughts. That's why it would be very futile to attempt to do that. Rather, what might lead us in a very positive direction is to change our relationship to our thoughts, to see them as things that happen. Very few of them are really important for promoting and progressing. Most of our thoughts are rubbish. really, I hope I'm not insulting anyone, but most of our thoughts, about 95% of our thoughts, are rubbish. That means they're either redundant, just a sense of ruminating over and over again, if it's what I have to do, what I have done wrong, what that person told me. We keep running in circles in our own mind. And a lot of our thoughts are about what has already happened, which we cannot change. And that's one of the things that I can really say for sure. No chance for a better past, no matter how hard you think about it. You will not change your past by thinking about it. That's good news and bad news. And figure out for yourself how much of your time and in what specific areas do you tend to overthink the past, wishing you could make it different. The other direction in which we go with our thoughts is trying to get hold of the future. And well, not great news in that direction either. There is only so much we can do, but we can think, wow, as much as we like. And there's another area of huge overthinking. And mindfulness is about, if you like, our mind's hygiene. How we can clear out at least some of the rubbish that's in our minds, that is constantly being created. You know, the original cause of that, if we look at it from an evolutionary perspective, it became into being because of a very good cause. We wanted to predict our future so we could, find ourselves in a better place, find food, find shelter. And for that same reason, we were hardwired to learn from experience. But what used to be quite useful when we were all in the savannah has now turned into a very powerful means of actually driving ourselves crazy, because we overthink in areas that not only don't help us, but can become very powerful stressors that really reduce our ability to cope. And that's where mindfulness comes in and assists us in finding out, really seeing for ourselves what's going on in the mind. Are there specific types of thinking or processes in the mind that I can try slowly, and slowly, but in a very determined way, that I can try to help them go down in their volume? But in order for me to do that, I first have to study the map of my mind, understand what's going on, what's useful and what isn't, what's harmful. And the best tool to do that I know of is mindfulness practice, is bringing awareness to this moment and really showing up, learning how to be present. And this brings me to a very groundbreaking research done by the Harvard Business School back in 2010, in which they gave a big bunch of people, I think there were around 1,000 people, they gave them those dumb phones, not the smartphones, that would randomly call them, and when they heard the phone, they were asked to pick it up and reply to a very short questionnaire that consisted of 3 basic questions. What are you doing now? And now meaning the moment that you heard the phone ring. What are you doing now? Is your mind in this doing, or is your mind doing something else, thinking something else? And how happy do you feel at this moment? And the findings were quite amazing. First of all, they found that only in about 50% of our waking time do our minds really attend to what we are doing. Isn't that amazing? 50% of our wake time, 50% of our lives, we're not present. We're doing something and our mind is somewhere else, meaning our mind is not living in the present moment. Now, that might be nice if we find out that it's useful or it makes us happy. But unfortunately, the other piece of findings from this specific research was, and it was a very significant finding, that people that reported being away from what they were doing with their minds also reported feeling less happy than people who reported that they were in the doing, not only in their bodies, but also in their minds. And that finding was true regardless of what they were doing. So even if what they were doing was throwing out the garbage or cleaning the house, as long as they reported that their mind was in the doing, they also reported higher levels of happiness. And the conclusion from that study was put into a very simple phrase: a wandering mind is an unhappy mind. And so taking that and trying to draw some kind of conclusion for ourselves, it makes sense that we should put some effort into being in the moment more than we usually do. It will make us happier, but also it will probably release a lot of overthinking that we do. But one of the important things here is that we can easily try it for ourselves. You shouldn't do it because I say so. You can really try it for yourself and see what happens when you do become a decision maker about how much effort am I going to put into this thought. Because what I'm inviting you to do is not to dismiss all of your thoughts and say, oh, that's all rubbish. I have to go and pick up my kid from school. Nah, that's just a thought, all rubbish. No, that's not recommend. But becoming mindful allows me to be more selective about the way I treat my thoughts. I keep in mind that some of my thoughts are rubbish. And so I will find ways in which to disengage from my thoughts when that is the best thing to do. And on the other hand, I can teach myself ways of fruitfully engaging with those thoughts that are enhanced by my thinking. What does that have to do with stress? Let's see, because being happy is nice. It's really nice. But I think a lot of people would be happy even with less than that. They would say, just take off all the worrying, the stress, catastrophe thinking. That would be enough. And so mindfulness has a lot to say about that. But before I go into citing more of what mindfulness has to say, I want to kind of put things in simple words. If I would have my presentation, you would now see a screen that would say, mindfulness is about recollecting, remembering, reminding, and re-bodying. And so I'll go through these 4 re's. As most of you may know, mindfulness grew out of the contemplative practices in the Far East, meditation, Buddhism, Hinduism. And the original meaning of the word mindfulness, sati, in Pali, is not only having a very clear awareness, but also to remember. And why is it so? It's because our mind is very forgetful. We get carried away so easily. And can you imagine a 2-year-old child walking in the park on a very sunny autumn day and encountering a pile of dry leaves, starting to jump on the leaves, and he is so fully in the moment? That is somewhat mindful, but not exactly. You know why? Because mindfulness is a mental state that requires intention. And that 2-year-old, that lucky 2-year-old who is really totally into the experience, he has no intention. It just happens. But, 2-3 years later and on till the end of his life, he will probably have to work quite a lot in order to bring himself back to that ability to be totally into the moment. A sense of total devotion or surrender to the senses, to the feeling in his body, to the happiness. And we tend to lose that as we grow older and busier. We tend to lose that when what gives us the greatest reward is ticking all the boxes and getting our job done. That becomes the biggest reward in our day. But when that happens, it means we've been taken quite away from ourselves. And so remembering is mainly about remembering there is a present moment. There is such a thing, and we can revisit it. Let's all revisit this moment. If you can, if it feels comfortable, close your eyes and redirect your attention to those places in the body that are now in contact with a chair, with a couch, with the floor, with a desk. Feel those areas of contact, just knowing that my right arm is now touching this. My left foot is now supported by that. I would call this re-bodying. It's bringing ourselves back to the moment by entering our body that we usually tend to just leave aside. I will lead us through a quite short meditation practice, which will allow us to scan the body very quickly. But before I do that, I want to share a beautiful quote from James Joyce's book, The Berliners, that came out more than 100 years ago, 105 years ago. And the book starts with a wonderful sentence: Mr. Duffy lived a short distance from his body. Isn't that great? We all live a short distance from our bodies, unless something goes wrong. Then we're all in. But mindfulness practice sounds like it has to do only with the mind, but I can tell you that a major element in mindfulness is bringing our body back to the game. Bringing it back to the game because the body is a great helper in bringing us back to the moment, because you can only sense your body as it is in this moment. Can anyone say how his tummy felt an hour ago? Really sense it? No, I can tell you maybe that it hurt or that it felt nice, but I can feel only what's going on in the body right now. And that's a great asset for practicing mindfulness. Another important thing is that body has a lot to do with stress management, because we feel stressed not only in the mind. If some of you think that they feel stressed or anxious only in their minds and not in the body, well, I have news for you. You're wrong. And getting into contact with those aspects of our stress, anxiety, depression, of all those different, I lost the word, all those different faces of our emotional reality, we're better off when we can feel how those things really show up, not only in our minds and thoughts, but in our body. And when that happens, we have a much greater chance to manage what's going on. So I'm going to lead us now into a short practice. We can call it a body scan, but actually we're just using the body as a vehicle to heighten our awareness. So settle in, find a position in which you feel supported, but still aware. So we're not looking for something that will help us doze off, because mindfulness is not about falling asleep. John Kabat-Zinn, who is the biggest importer of mindfulness into the Western world, he used to say, mindfulness is not about falling asleep. Mindfulness is about falling awake. So we really want to fall awake. We want to become much more awake and yet settled, grounded, and collected. So let's take 2, 3 deeper breaths. Really feel the air coming in. Really feel the air entering the body into the chest and the belly. And then slowly coming out with no effort. And again, allowing the air to flow in and letting go slowly. We're in no rush. We're not trying to get anywhere. And let's bring our awareness intentionally to the lower part of our body. We can start with the feet. Just getting a sense of how they are right now. Do I feel them? Any sense of temperature? Allowing the feet to be supported. And then gently allowing our awareness to go up to the ankle, the calf, and the knee. Just feeling if there are any special sensations. Sometimes we can't even locate these organs, and that's also okay. That can happen. Coming to our thighs, feeling how do we feel the support our thighs have? And can we let go of them a little more? We'll go into the pubis, just feeling the way this bottom part of our torso is grounded in the chair or the couch or on the floor or the cushion. And with each in-breath, feeling our spine rise up from our tailbone towards the back of the neck. And with every out breath, allowing both sides of the back return to their natural place. Allowing the shoulder blades to soften. Acknowledging any strain we might feel. And as best we can, letting go of it. And now taking a look again at where our minds are. Do we see thinking going on? Do we hear some chattering of the mind? And we might be able to let go of that while bringing our awareness back to our arms, going down all the way from the shoulders, through our elbows, to our fingers. Feeling our neck, allowing it to become a bit lighter or softer, letting go of our jaws, that for many of us become a great hiding place for stress, clenching, tightness. And now with the out breath, allowing this whole area to loosen up. Acknowledging the way it feels right now. No need to make it other than it actually is. Softening all of our facial muscles. Not forcing anything. Letting go of any kind of struggle. What we want to do is become intimate with whatever is. Again, noticing, where is my mind right now? Is it thinking? Oh well, thinking again. I can let go of that and come back to the body and the breath. And we can gently now, intentionally, let go of this awareness of the body and open our eyes back in this room. But perhaps keeping some of this quality of mindfulness, of clear awareness, not leaving our bodies behind just because we're back to talking. So I'm sure each and every one of you noticed something or some things. And since we cannot get into a long conversation about that, I would like to say that the beauty in mindfulness is not reporting what you saw, what you felt or thought during your practice, but rather appreciating the fact that you did become aware of all that. That's the amazing thing. Our ability not only to think, but to know that we are thinking and to really see how that thinking affects our body. And then in return, our body affects the thinking. And when we start to get momentum on that practice of awareness, then we really get closer to the potential for change, for better stress management, for letting go of mental habits that really get hold of us for years. And if all that makes sense to you and sounds relevant, then I would like to take a few minutes just to tell you about this new and exciting enterprise of mindfulness-based course for corporates that aims to bring a modified form of mindfulness-based intervention for those of you who are looking for a way to bring these qualities, first of all, to yourselves, but then to your workplace. And as Michal said, this is kind of old news, because these things have been happening in the last decade in major firms that really discovered the great potential of mindfulness for their workers' well-being. Not only in a way that makes them better workers, that deliver better, but in a deeper way, making the workplace more, I would say, sane, making it a place that can assist our sanity and not only put a very heavy toll on it. But so the good news is that it can be done. The bad news probably is that we're talking about the process of change. It's not a one-timer. You really have to dedicate time and intention for that change to happen. And the course that I would like to tell you about that will begin somewhere in the beginning of 2021, brought by the Tel Aviv Center for Mindfulness, is intended to do that in those three levels of, one, the personal level, two, the level of interaction, interpersonal interaction, and then the third level of bringing this new wave into the corporation. And having put a lot of thought into building this program and really making it worthwhile and bringing something that is sustainable and not just nice to be here, was really nice, I'll tell all my friends and I'm going to forget about it when this ends. We're talking about something that can really have the time to sink in and find its way from each and every one of you to a large scale, and in that way influencing many more people.
Smadar, thank you so much. I'd like to personally thank you. I just had a wonderful hour now. I'm just so calm and relaxed.
That's great.
It's been great. And I think especially for people within who do community management, and especially in this era where everything is online and we're just not even meeting people, it's just fantastic to have this kind of session, to get back into our body. We're always in our mind. We're always in front of a laptop or a computer doing two or three things at a time. And just having that moment just for ourselves and just being in this moment, which is, it's singular.
It's like a clearing in the forest.
It is. And that's been fantastic. So
Great.
Thank you so much. And obviously feel free to keep joining us and keep spreading the light and the calmness. I just feel really relaxed now.
Oh, I'm so happy.
I hope everybody else enjoyed the session as well. And and thank you. And we'll be going on to our next session in 10 minutes, everybody. So come back calm and relaxed and ready for more community talk. Thank you, Smadar.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.